Following on from the social factors discussed in the previous video, this video will focus on the relative age effect, often referred to as RAE, and how it influences athlete development and talent transfer. The relative age describes the advantage that athletes born earlier in a selection year have over those born later. In most sports systems, athletes are grouped into age categories based on fixed cutoff dates. This can result in an age difference up to 12 months between athletes within the same group. At younger ages, this difference can have a significant impact on physical development. Athletes born earlier in the selection year are often more physically mature, meaning they may be stronger, faster, and more coordinated than their relatively young peers. This concept was first highlighted by Roger Barnsley and colleagues, who found that a large proportion of the youth athletes were born in early months of the selection year. This suggests that selection process may favour relatively older athletes due to their physical advantages. This links directly to the biological perspective discussed earlier, where early maturing athletes are often perceived as more talented based on their physical performance. However, the relative age effect is not just a biological issue, it also has important physical implications. As discussed in the previous video, athletes who experience early success are more likely to develop higher levels of confidence and motivation. This aligns with the work of Bandura, as repeated success can increase self-efficacy. In contrast, relatively younger athletes may experience more challenges, such as being physically disadvantaged or receiving less playtime. This can reduce confidence, lower motivation, and increase the likelihood of dropout. Over time, this creates a cycle where relatively older athletes receive more opportunities, better coaching, and more reinforcement, while younger athletes are overlooked. This highlights the key limitation within traditional talent identification systems, as discussed in the previous videos. These systems often prioritize current performance rather than long-term potential. This is where the concept of talent transfer becomes particularly important. Athletes who are overlooked or deselected due to the relative age effect may still possess high levels of potential. However, they may not be identified without traditional pathways. Talent transfer provides an alternative route for these athletes. As they continue to develop physically and psychologically, they may become well suited to other sports where their attributes are better aligned. For example, a relatively younger athlete who is not selected in one sport may later excel in another sport once their physical development has progressed. This reinforces the central idea from the first video that talent is not fixed and they can develop over time. Research from Cobley and colleagues further supports this, showing that relative age effect is a widespread issue across many sports. This suggests that the current systems may not always identify true long-term potential. From a coaching perspective, this highlights the importance of taking a long-term approach to athlete development. Rather than focusing solely on early performance, coaches should consider potential for growth and recognise that athletes are not always linear. In relation to talent transfer, this means that coaches should remain open to identifying athletes outside of traditional pathways. Athletes who have been previously overlooked may still have the capacity to succeed in a different sport, particularly if their physical and psychological characteristics align more closely with the demands of that of sport. However, it's important to recognise that talent transfer is not a complete solution to the relative age effect. While it can provide opportunities for some athletes, it does not address the underlying issue within the selection system. These systems may still favour early developers, meaning that athletes may continue to be overlooked. Therefore, talent transfer should be used alongside efforts to improve talent identification and development systems, making them more inclusive and focus on long-term potential. In summary, the relative age effect highlights how structural factors within sport can influence athlete development and opportunities. It demonstrates that early advantages do not necessarily reflect long-term potential and that many athletes may be overlooked due to factors beyond their control. Linking this back to talent transfer, it's clear that talent transfer can provide a valuable alternative pathway, allowing athletes to re-enter development systems and fulfill their potential. It also reinforces the key message from across the previous videos, that talent development is multidimensional, influenced by biological, psychological, and social factors. This now leads into the final video, which will examine the talent identification and talent development systems and evaluate how talent transfer can be integrated to create more effective and inclusive pathways for athletes.